Why hello there, and welcome back to Tabletop Ferox, I guess I'm calling this now. Anyway, it is once again time to come on and slam, and welcome to the Jam, the one-page RPG Jam, 2K22. And as I have done for the previous 2 years, I have poured through the hundreds of entries to bring you 5. Not necessarily like the best 5, just 5 that I wanted to talk about in this video. Although I may or may not be saving some other one-page games that I want to talk about for a future video. And of course, I also made a game for the Jam, which I will now briefly mention as I do in all of these videos. Consider the Ooze, another one of my little experimental games, this time trying to replicate the experience of being a mindless ooze, with only the most basic of senses and a mindless compulsion to consume. And as always, there's a link to that in the description, along with links to all of the games that I'm talking about here, because that's how I do it in these videos. But now, onto the games that I did not make, in a rough order of how much I like them, and as always, I am strictly enforcing that a one-page game is one page, one side only, because that just kind of helps me narrow things down, and that's how I do it, so that's how the video does it. So let's start with Missing RPG, which is definitely on the higher concept side of things. It is a game that is played by amending the rules to a game and passing it on. So, you know, an interesting concept, and one that is a bit meta. A game revolving around the concept of a game's journey through different people and rules adjustments. It is also a game designed with play-by-post in mind, and I do like to see people minding the different ways that games can be played as more than just an afterthought. However, the actual playing leaves something to be desired. It is basically a little block of PTBA-esque rules with instructions to change a rule, write a rationale for the rule change, and then pass it on to someone else. It is one of those things where it is very arguable whether or not it is really a role-playing game, or even really a game. And I don't know, I mean, look at it. It is very unimpressive stylistically. But now, Exploratory Medicine, a solo journaling game about performing experimental avant-garde medical procedures. Basically, roll dice and consult one or more tables to determine how the procedure goes, then use that as the prompt to write how the thing went. There's also a stability score, which goes up and down with the results until it gets either high enough for the patient to recover or low enough for them to die. So, a really cool idea. Like I always say, I like it when people take tabletop games in an or underexplored direction, and medical drama is an underexplored direction for role-playing games. And the rules work, but are a little bland. The whole experimental avant-garde part is really up to your imagination. There isn't really anything provided in terms of what procedures you are performing and how experimental and or avant-garde they are. Although I do also really like when journaling games have a level of mechanics to them beyond just roll on a table and write a response, which this game does. And the layout is pretty damn bare bones, with margins that are just thin enough to make me vaguely uncomfortable. And honestly, I don't think I've ever seen such a stark contrast between the aesthetics on the page that I downloaded the game from and the actual game. But now on to Momentum, a game about skateboarding. And yes, I did cover another game about skateboarding in a previous one of these videos, but this one is quite different, as it focuses very heavily on the actual mechanics of skateboarding, with rules for things like acceleration, braking, doing tricks, and, of course, momentum. So, you know, average concept, skateboarding is a thing that, you know, it's been around for a while, and the mechanics are kind of a mixed bag. As I said, they are going for a lot of depth in the mechanics of riding a skateboard while performing and linking tricks together to earn points, but it all feels very big brain and theoretical. Like, much less a game about skateboarding and more an academic exploration of how skateboarding mechanics similar to those used in skateboarding video games could be adapted and implemented in a tabletop game. And it looks fine, I guess, but the text is super tiny, the reading order is kind of unclear, and neither of the likely orders is a particularly well laid out flow of information. And next, Captain Harlan's Treacherous Treasury, an honestly somewhat unremarkable pirate adventure game, but, unremarkable does not mean bad, it just means not particularly noteworthy. Yes, things can be bad and unremarkable, but they can also be kinda good and unremarkable. So it's got a solid concept. You are cursed pirates questing to find treasure and also a cure for your curses. And it is also solidly built. The mechanics are simple and there's a nice selection of curses and also a system for randomly generating islands on which to hunt for the treasure. And it even looks, I would say, above average. It is just one of those things where there's not much exciting here regardless of how well it's put together. And it is well put together, it's just, it's just a game about pirates. And finally, FPS one-page solo RPG. And I am kinda cheating a little on this one, as it is technically 2 pages. A page of core rules, and then another page of setting. And I was going to go and give a rationale behind this, but then I remembered that not only do I not have to, I don't really care that much, so... Anyway, the game is basically a solo exploration game using cards and dice to determine random features, occurrences, loot, outcomes, etc. as you explore around. So not really a groundbreaking concept. I do like the idea that this one set of rules functions as a base that could then be applied to exploring multiple different settings within the same framework. That is the reason I was interested in this, is that is how it presents itself, but it is also a thing where until those other settings exist, it isn't that thing. And the mechanics are also nothing incredibly special, although what I do like is a pretty aggressive resource management element to the dice mechanics, where you start with a pool of 10d6, but then lose every die that fails on a roll. So you do have to carefully manage that pool instead of just plowing through everything as fast as possible. And it looks pretty darn good. Although the included irradiated wasteland setting is perhaps a bit too yellow for my tastes, even if it is thematically appropriate. And there you have it. 5 one-page role-playing games that I wanted to talk about in a video, and then I did. As I said earlier, there will be links in the description to these games if you want to check them out for yourself, and, there may or may not be a secret upcoming one-page RPG video in the future. But that is an issue for the future. As for right now, thank you for watching, with extra special thanks to my Fightin' Flail Snails, Samuel Gorski, Randy Mulholland, and Toshiro Kuro. If you'd like to be cool like them, check out my Patreon, where you can get early access to videos and fun stuff that I make for the Patreon. But if you don't want to do that, that's cool too. You can still hit all the lovely buttons, like, subscribe, these other videos, which either myself or YouTube have lovingly selected for you, which I am sure are lovely videos that you will also enjoy. And I will see you next time.